He does. He's a fine person.
But the trouble is that the others are quite expert on their topics, and I only heard
great,
about Finn a couple of weeks ago.
Say hello to the people in Manhattan at the moment. This is Dr. Mary Goss, and she's with us here to talk about Newry's greatest. And the person that you're championing is Finn O'Gorman.
Yes, or Mac Gorman.
Mac Gorman.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Whatever, yeah. And this is the big 28th of February thing in Newry,
That's right.
where we've got people competing to be Newry's greatest. Well, they can't compete for themselves because they're all dead, the 7 of them, but out of it will come, through people like yourself representing their views and their contribution, will come by a kind of democratic process of voting. We'll select Newry's greatest.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. But the great plan is that the money on the night that's raised will go to Concern Worldwide.
Yes,
it's
I
a
think
huge
that's
thing.
what motivates all of us.
I believe so.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We're complaining of the cold this morning here in Newry.
Just think Syria.
Yes, absolutely.
God help us.
Freezing cold. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, awful when you think about it. But your heart would be close to things like Concern.
Yes, it would be. It
Without a
would be. Yes, I have a background where I did a lot of work in my school period that I was working in school where I was...
You were Sacred Heart.
Yes, that's right. And I would have taught geography to A level, so there was a lot of development work part of that. So yes, I'm very much aware of what it would be like at this stage for them.
So it's great that the money raised on the 28th of February at the Town Hall in Newry will go to Concern Worldwide for the refugees in those dreadful camps. Well, they're not dreadful camps. They're their homes, for goodness sake.
They are, but they're very overcrowded.
Overcrowded and awful to us.
Yeah.
But these people make the most of it. A few sheets of tin, and they can make a house. Cardboard boxes and hammer things together, they can make a home.
That's right. I think at the moment the problem is that they don't have any. Well, they have very little resources. You know, there'll be 5 or 6 times too many people in the camps, and they don't have what they need. So that spurs us on.
And Syria's not getting any better because the ceasefire, allowing people out, that's not going as perfectly as we would have wished, because there's a lot of people being arrested, and
that's right.
There's worries there.
That's right.
It's crazy, crazy stuff. Finn McGorman,
yes.
Tell us about your the greatest ever Newry person.
Well, I think we expanded it slightly so that we could say Finn McGorman and the Abbots of Newry. So that helps his legacy, I suppose, to be included in what I'm talking about. But yes, he came with the first small group of monks.
Were they Cistercians?
They were Cistercians,
yeah.
But I think that's the key piece. If they had just been any other group of monks, it wouldn't have worked out so well for Newry, I don't think, because they brought a very different European approach to monastic life, and the particular thing being that the Cistercians were farming reformers and got out and did the work themselves. So they would have selected local lay brothers who would then have been trained in all the latest farm practices. So it's hard to, trying to get myself back into 12th century Newry has been the first position I've had to take.
But no better woman to do that, the geographer of the Sacred Heart, for
so
goodness
when you
sake.
strip away all the layers of man-made things from the landscape and you're back to 12th century landscape, that's how I've sort of gone into it and looked at it and thought, well, that's what they came to.
Well, what was the Newry that they came to?
They came to, a virtually bare site. There would have been little settlements on the, if you imagine yourself looking towards the sea from a point back up the valley a little bit, with the Mourns on the left and the Carlingford Hills on the right.
The basic outline of the mountains would be the same.
Exactly, everything's the same. The fjord would be the same, except that in the foreground it would be boggy marshland and the river, small river entering the sea. So a little bit of ridge of high land on the east side, on the left bank, I suppose, of the river. You would have had a position there where there were a few small settlements. We're talking a tiny handful of houses.
And the houses would have been what? Would have been clay and wattle made?
They probably would, I think. There's no evidence.
Maybe straw roofs or something?
Well, at that time, yeah, absolutely. You know, the local mud huts, basically, to be honest. Down in Dublin, even there, the Viking settlements were, well, we know what they were like. They were those wattle and daub panels.
Yes, yeah.
So it would have been something along those lines.
Those things were very good. Even in Africa, I see mud huts now.
Absolutely.
A great
Absolutely.
system, and
Yeah,
it
they are a
works
good
magnificently.
system. But looking at the landscape, you would barely have noticed the settlement. But there was a little monastic site there. The records would show from back a couple of hundred years earlier, for St. Patrick's time, presumably. And of course, the famous yew tree was still there.
Wow.
At the head of the strand, given the name. So that was already there. But St. Malachi was Archbishop of Armagh. He was passing through the area on his way over to visit a number of places. He was going to visit Clairvaux, the big Cistercian abbey in France, on his way to Rome and do other business.
And was that where our Cistercians came from?
Absolutely.
From Clairvaux?
In a sort of a two-step process. When Malachi went over in 1140 to Clairvaux and had spent some time there, he left some of his companions behind him, and they trained as Cistercians. When he came back, I suppose, I'm thinking of the journey and what it must have been like, because it would have been horseback. They wouldn't have had even, wagons or anything at that stage. The roads were too bad. But anyway, after the journey back, he determined that he would get something started, and he did that at Mellifont. He chose the site at Mellifont down in County Louth, and the first group then came over and settled in Mellifont in 1142, I think it was. And just 2 years later, Newry was established with a group from Mellifont.
From Mellifont.
So it's just
So we were evangelised.
We were evangelised, yes, absolutely. So that was the very first time that there'd been an
But if you're going to be
like
evangelised, you would want to be evangelised by a Cistercian, wouldn't you?
Well, certainly if you wanted to develop your economy and your social systems in your area, you would. Because they seem to have looked outwards very much.
Yeah.
And developed trade and agriculture, which of course set up my colleagues who will be with me on the 28th of February will be talking about other individuals who built upon that, which was already there.
No building was possible if the foundation of the Cistercians had not been put in, and the Cistercians weren't exclusively proselytizing.
Oh, not at all, absolutely not, no. They would have been granted, I think it was in 1157, they were granted 6,000 acres of land in a charter, which took in a large portion of town lands currently to the east of Newry, and some land in County Armagh, a little bit in County Louth.
Who would have granted them that?
That was the High King of Ireland, MacLachlan. Yeah, MacLachlan.
Sure, the MacLachlans are still around.
Well, absolutely.
God bless us and save us.
Absolutely.
There's not too many Gosses or Hands there in those days.
No, there were absolutely none. There were absolutely none. That's true. Yes, but I think probably him as an individual, he must have been very prestigious in terms of being a man of letters, because he is the person responsible for the compilation of the Book of Leinster, which is in Trinity College in Dublin. And in that, you have lots of stories, including the Town Bo Cullen.
Yes.
So those big pieces are there as well.
I have this belief about the Town story, the Maeve coming to take the bull of Cooley. And this is my philosophy, and I'm probably wrong here. It baffles me that any queen would take her army all the way across Ireland to get one bull and take it home again. That actually doesn't make a lot of sense to me. What does make a lot of sense to me, and especially when I look at the outline of the Cooley Mountain, for all the world, to my mind's eye, the Cooley Mountain is like a bull lying down, and it's there looking out. And so she came for the bull, all right, but it was to capture the high ground of Cooley and take control of the area. That's not an impossibility, Mary.
No, well, it sounds like it's symbolic. The bull possibly is symbolic. I can be shot down for this. I'm no expert in Irish mythology, but I suppose we can thank my monk for writing it down so that we have the story. Yeah.
Did they also, I ask you, there were fish farmers as well?
They would have done that, and they were cotton and wool experts, or trading in wool, especially merchants. And
they probably would have had the first pub in Carlingford. They would have had their own wine and stuff like that.
They may have done that, yeah. They certainly would have concentrated on producing, I suppose, the manufactured in terms of economic development. What started out as an area that was subsistence farming, gradually they would have had surpluses, more surpluses than the other systems would have provided before. So they owned the rights to the Newry market. Wow. So they had that established. The records would show that they were in charge of the market, and the market on a Thursday was established by
You're
that
joking
stage.
me.
Yes, yes.
By the Cistercians.
Well, it was part of during their time, early time there. Yeah, absolutely.
But what was in it for them? Was it all about God, or was it about enrichment and becoming landlords?
It's very hard to tell. It seemed to be about improvement. They seemed to choose, looking at in France, they seemed to choose difficult, boggy, awkward sites that were difficult to work with. So in fairness, there was an element of reclamation almost, or development of poor quality land. They didn't choose the best land.
Were they philanthropists, or were they there for self-gain?
There's no sense that they were there for massive self-gain, because it was, it wasn't like there was a massive monastery that we still have to look at. Of course, whatever they have has been lost, unfortunately, or most of it. Well, there's very little evidence left, let's say. Some controversial bits, the abbot's house versus
versus Bagnall's Castle and all of that.
So there are some bits and pieces that we have, but we really don't know what edifices they had in their day. There's still the sense that they were working out in the community, and there's water mills have been developed and farm practices have been developed. I think it's just remembering that in the whole of Europe, let's say in the 1300s, if you put yourself into that zone, sitting round a table at the annual general chapter of the Cistercians, there was always a representative there from every monastery. It was compulsory. So like Newry was being brought to the table and things discussed, and they were going away with all the ideas that were being discussed about trade and about farming practices and so on. So there was a really important link there with the outside world.
In a sense, they were Newry's first chamber of commerce and trade.
Yes, I would think so. It sounds like that. And because of their language skills and so on, they were able to speak on behalf of local groups and go and negotiate things. And certainly that seems to have been a significant role that they would have had. It is difficult. Different writers say slightly different things, but there's a certain commonality in what's been said,
What kind of men were they, and what kind of man was your hero?
Well, now, I really have no particular way of knowing that. As I say, he seems to have been able to combine multitask in a way that makes him quite impressive. Well, this is the thing. How do we know?
How do we know?
He certainly managed to set up the establishment in Newry. He managed to get that off the ground, if you like. Simultaneously, he must have been working on the final drafts of the Book of Leinster.
Yes.
And not long after that, he was also asked to take on the role of Bishop of Kildare, which he did. So
and did he leave Newry then?
There's no sense that he left immediately. No, he was carrying out these duties and doing various things. But I think it's, in fairness to the monks who followed on in the role of abbot, they seem to have a consistent development plan going on there. But this link with the home base, if you like, with the general chapter and the attendance being compulsory for many, many years, that is bound to have been some sort of lifeline to keep things refreshed.
And was there I'm not sure of my history, but was there a conversion process embarked upon? They were developing it economically and from trade points of view, but they were dealing with a pagan people, or had people started the conversion process? They
would have been dealing with the people that had been in the past generations exposed to Christianity and would have been
through
officially
Patrick.
Christians.
How long after Patrick?
Well, we're talking about Patrick's 5th century. This is 12th century. So
for goodness sake, it's a long time.
It is a long time. But certainly there's quotes from St. Bernard, who described the Irish at that time as being, really brute ignorant, and saying that they were quite paganistic in their rituals and so on. So, but there still was a monastic presence of some sort in Newry before the Cistercians arrived. So they had an awareness of these holy men, no doubt, but they didn't act on it. But they were more involved. I think it was the fact that the monks were out in the fields doing the work alongside the people that was for the first time a sense that agriculture is actually not something that the poorest of the poor do. That it's actually something that there is a science to, and that more important people
And you build an economy
take
on
part.
it.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
that was it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
the whole thing, he's a good man, this fellow.
Well,
And he's
absolutely.
representative of the ideal.
He is. I think that's the point. I mean, we know he existed. There's plenty of writings about him. We know that a lot of what happened because there's very good records in various places.
Yes.
Just difficult alongside the more recent folk that have been represented on the night to make a character out of him, because we don't have any real sense of what he was like.
But I mean, we look around and we see what has grown from his solid foundation.
Absolutely.
You should be the Newry's greatest.
Well,
of course you should.
Of course.
I believe this from what you're saying to me. All these other Johnny-come-latelys were there, just monkeying around and doing the easy bit.
Standing on the shoulders
of the giant of the past. Goodness gracious, I believe this. But it's great that it's happening, and we really want people to come to this in the town hall in Newry on the 28th of February. And it's a tenner, is it?
Yes, it's
a tenner
£10
to come in. But that's £10 a gift to concern worldwide going to the Syrian refugees.
Yes, I think people are looking forward to the electronic voting as well.
There's electronic voting as well. You'll get press, and tell us what you're doing. So that's it. Your other interest remains, and I mentioned it to you earlier, Accord.
Yes, we'll have two other things that are going on. One's Accord and the other's Newry Musical Feis.
Wow. When is the Feis?
The Feis' first part starts next week.
Well, we need someone in next week.
On Saturday.
Who should we contact?
On Thursday, the Feis starts and runs until Sunday.
Who should we talk to?
Well, you could talk to somebody connected with the Irish dance, or you could talk to someone else on the committee who would be happy to do that.
Yeah, we'll make this contact. We'll do this next week. We had the Warren Point Feis people in.
Okay.
They were very good. They're very proud of what they do down there, and they are good people. But Newry Feis is the daddy of them all.
It is.
It's the mummy and daddy of them all.
It is.
And everything grows from that. The Accord, tomorrow's that silly Valentine's Day thing.
Yes.
But you see the consequences of love when people come to Accord to be advised on. What does it do? It guides them towards marriage, or does it salvage marriages that are on the rocks?
Some of that language would need to be rearranged.
She can't.
There's two services. One of them is the marriage education service, where people go in preparation before they get married.
For marriage.
There's another team who work with people who are in difficult stages. And certainly we don't guide and we don't advise, but we provide them with a space to work things through. And there's a bit of a link between the two, because there would be people who very courageously decide after they've done their preparation piece that they might do a little bit of counselling as well as part of their preparation before they actually get married.
But isn't it interesting that the judiciary is now encouraging people towards mediation rather than confrontation in the divorce courts?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's really happening there. And Accord, you've set the pattern for that.
Yes. Well, hopefully, yes.
In basic terms, how does it work?
How does it work? Well, it depends if somebody presents on their own, we work with the person on their own. But if a couple come together, then the dynamic is more complex, and we make decisions. There's a needs assessment process which lasts for at least one session to be sure they're in the right place and that we're the right service. So having done the checking out with individuals or couples, then we would move into the counselling process if that's what they want at that time. So
the fact that they're coming to you is an indicator of positivity.
It is, absolutely. No, we're very busy, and that's, in one way that's not good, but in another way it's excellent, because the sooner people come, the better, really.
The better, I'm very, very happily married for 45 years, and then had the joyous wonderment of being divorced at 45 years. Followed by the joyous wonderment of rebuilding a lovely friendship again with my former wife. And who knows what might happen.
You just never know.
You never know. It's a crazy old world, isn't it?
It absolutely
I said to her, sweetheart, why did you bother? Why would you bother? 45 years, goodness gracious. A long, long time. But there was no conflict or anything like that. It was all done. And the children were all raised and stuff like that. There's no what do they call that thing? Collateral damage.
No collateral damage.
That's the thing that can be terribly problematic. But I think the problem is, not that I know, people believe that their happiness comes from someone else.
That's right. External locus of control, I think, is the phrase.
Is that the phrase?
Yeah.
But I very, very solidly discovered that happiness comes from being at ease in your own life personally. And then out of that strength, you can build and give something to someone and take something from someone, you know.
That's right.
So is marriage in a good or bad state at the moment in Newry?
I'd say there's a need for people to improve the quality of what they have. They don't have to live with the difficulties. Most of the people we see would be sorry they didn't do something much sooner.
And it's so time wasting. Can you imagine all the negative vibes and energy that exists when people are constantly at loggerheads?
That's right.
Life is much more beautiful when you're not.
Yes,
you know?
absolutely. Yes, you're free to just be yourself and to relax.
And relax and be in the space. Anyway, that's the other string that's on your bow. How would you have been as a nun those years ago, coming in with the monks? If Finn whatever wanted himself to have a woman with him to help, could you fulfil that role?
Oh, I would say my farming background would have come to the
You're
fore.
a statuesque woman. You're a tall woman and a happy woman, and it would have worked out all right indeed. Well, listen to me. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. I'm going to play you a wee bit of music now, but before we play the music, actually, do you know what the next bit of music is? You're never going to believe it. The next bit of music is Kieran Goss and Beth Nielsen Chapman singing Sand and Water. That's quite coincidental, isn't it?
Yes.
That's Mary Goss, and she'll be there on the 28th of February in the Town Hall in Newry. Please join us so that we can do great things for the refugees in Syria.
Championing Finn.
Championing Finn McCorman. The bowl Finn McCorman.
Absolutely.
Now, Kieran Goss and Beth Nielsen Chapman. Andrew, take it away.